Hi everybody. Welcome to Digi's webinar session for today. Good morning, everyone. It's almost noon. I'll see that. Okay, so we are going to start in about a few minutes. So just stay tuned. If you have any questions, feel free to answer or ask your questions on the Q&A box. It should be down below at your nav bar. All right. If you want to give out reactions, you can give out reactions using the chat function there. So if you have any issues, quickly feel free to just run it on the chat. We will have someone from our team to attend to your technical issues. I think I got a hi here from Mr. Sivaneswaran Manogaran. Hi, good morning. Good morning. We're going to start soon. I hope you're pumped up as I am. All right, sorry, 12 o'clock. We're just gonna wait for just one of our guests is waiting to join in. So just stay tuned for a minute and we'll start pretty soon. Okay, guys? All right, it's 12 o'clock. All right, there you go. Hi, Mr. Joachim. Hi, Joe. Nice to meet you. All right, all right. Joachim, hi. Joe, if you don't mind me call you Joe. Are you ready?
Yeah, Joe's fine.
All right. Can you hear us? Clear? Awesome.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, all right. So welcome everybody. Hi, welcome to Digi's webinar for today. For today, we are going to start pretty soon. So a little bit, I am Nick from Seats. I'll be your moderator for today. So our webinar today is titled Digi CXO Apprentice 101. But before I go on with this, we have a wonderful video we want to show to all of you. So let me just put that up really quick here. Okay, enjoy this video, right guys? All right, that was a wonderful video. I hope so pumped up. I'm so pumped up to be honest that it was very energetic. All right, so before we move on, I'm just gonna so for our session today, Digi CXO Apprentice 101. So what we're gonna talk about today is really just to follow Jonathan through his CXO Apprentice program journey. the moment he applied to where he is today, right in front of you guys. So just hear firsthand on what he has gained from being an apprentice at Digi, and hear what his mentor, Mr. Joachim Rajaram, Joe, Digi's Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, has to say about what it takes to succeed in this program. So to those, all of you who do not know what is a CXO Apprentice program, it is the flagship recruitment program that offers young talents direct mentorship with chief officers and employment in a leading digital company. Now in its fifth year, the program is designed to inspire the next generation of leaders. I'm looking at all of you, by empowering them with a unique and transformative experience of being mentored directly by chief officers. So first of all, I would like to introduce to Mr. Joachim Rajaram, DG's Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Joe, and then Jonathan, CXO Apprentice 2019. All right, Joe?
Hi, Nick. Would you like me to start, or would you like Jonathan to have a few words first?
I think, yeah, we can start with you, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Nick, and the team for inviting us on this session. I hope it's going to be an enlightening session, but mostly I hope it inspires a few of you who are watching to turn in your applications for this really good program. We're now recruiting for batch 5 of Digi CXO Apprentice. We started this 5 years ago, and the intent was really to develop and groom a batch of very talented Malaysians that can potentially take up meaningful leadership roles within our own organizations, but just broadly also contribute towards the Malaysian economy. And to do that, we felt that it was necessary to firstly find these very talented individuals. Secondly, put them in an environment where they can thrive and grow, where they will be both challenged and supported. But thirdly, and I think most importantly in the context of CXO Apprentice program, to have them matched up with a very senior business executive for the entire tenure of the apprenticeship, to virtually shadow us to most of our meetings, except for some of those who be a little bit delicate or sensitive, and then have a good view, insight into the workings of what it takes to operate at a very high senior leadership level, what issues we face, how we problem solve, how we approach issues on leadership and development, and how we generally come together as a team to contribute towards a larger goal. Jonathan is my current apprentice. He was recruited in August and September last year, and he started his apprenticeship in October. He will conclude his tenure, I think, in August this year, Jonathan, if I'm correct, before the new batch of apprentices come in. And I hope one of you will be among one of them. And I wish you all the best for that. Hope to share as much insights as we can in this next 40 minutes. Jonathan, over to you.
Thank you, boss. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Salam Ramadan. Thank you to Nick and team for actually having this event here today. Hello to everyone who is actually tuning in, hopefully from home, to this session. So I'm Jonathan Dason. I'm currently serving as the CXO apprentice to Mr. Joachim, who is also my mentor and boss. I am actually from Johor Bahru to be precise. And for university, I actually studied in Sarawak for 4 years, UNIMAS, University Malaysia Sarawak. Interestingly, I did not study a so-called a regular course, the kind that most Asian parents would probably want their kid to study, you know, the doctor, lawyer, engineer, sometimes maybe even accountancy. I actually studied international relations, kajian antarabangsa. I joined Digi last year, and I'm still in the program, as Joachim mentioned, and things have been going great. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. So I think we have a few questions here that we want to ask you, because all of us here attendees, we are dying to know what is the inside perspective in the program. So Jonathan, you had quite an extensive internship experience with multiple companies, even one of the top consulting firms. So, but why did you choose Digi CXO program after your graduation?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Nick. It's actually a question that some people also ask to me. I studied a degree that doesn't have a fixed pathway, international relations, as I just mentioned. And a lot of people who study this course want to be diplomats or ambassadors, but sadly, not everybody gets to be one. And I think early in my degree life, I actually decided that I want to be in the corporate world, at least spend some time there, learn up the skills. But I had a big problem. What I studied academically didn't necessarily fit the corporate world immediately in terms of academics, pure academics. So I didn't know how to fit in, and I didn't know, more importantly, how can I add value. So two things stood out for me. One, I think I needed to discover my strengths so that I can add value to a large corporate organization. And number two, I needed guidance and mentorship. And this program is sort of like a nice combination of these two things. So I actually have an analogy. Um, it's like going to a theme park. You go to a theme park, you're pumped, you're excited, and there's so many rides there at the theme park. However, you only have very limited time because you went there in the afternoon and it's going to close at 5. So you want to know how exactly do you want to spend your time, and what exactly do you want to experience. It's nice when you have someone to guide you to this, someone that has been through it before, and to know, okay, this might be suitable for you, this might not be suitable for you. But what's even better is that if you could actually trial run it, like sort of like if you go to a menu and you taste a little bit of each, then you decide for yourself what exactly do you want to do and where exactly do you want to explore. And I think this program has that unique ability, that unique combination, and hence it was a good option.
I see, I see. Thank you so much for that. So I think that is actually one of the most important thing that all of us as attendees as Korean, what we need to know is that it's important for us to have a mentor so that we can actually cut short on all terms of learning. And then just like Jonathan said, maybe you all could go for a theme park, right, and understand that situation. So from the perspective of a mentor, right, Joe, what do you typically look for as an apprentice?
That's an interesting question. Well, first of all, let me just say that the CXO Apprentice program it has a very thorough application pathway. You're invited to write in for something. You're invited to send in your videos. There's going to be sort of online questionnaires. In the previous years, where we could have a lot of physical interactions, we used to have people, by the several hundreds in a big room, doing tasks together, doing hands-on projects together, being observed by leaders within Digi. Then for us to really pinpoint the best ones to scout for the program, filter them into a short list where we could have several rounds of interviews, face-to-face interviews, and then take it, and then finally for each of the CXOs to pick one that we would like to have with us throughout the entire year. Interestingly, last year Jonathan couldn't make it for the final interview sessions, so I had my interview with Jonathan like this on video. He was in Kuching, I believe, at that time, John.
Wow.
But that will be sort of the same process that we will have this year with many of the applications as well, given the sort of social distancing and other restrictions that are coming as a consequence of MCO. But the same thing I looked for in candidates last year and the previous years, I will look for this year as well. The first thing I like to look for is a sense of confidence and sense of charisma and enthusiasm in what the person does. I think there's no shortcut for coming to an interview, coming to a process, staying within the process with a lot of passion and enthusiasm. It's the easiest thing to see if you're looking for it. It's the hardest thing to fake. You can't fake enthusiasm. You've got to be genuinely interested in both yourself and what you're putting yourself into. Secondly, I also look for someone who can sort of inspire a little confidence in me that they have courage and that they have the ability to actually do the job. Someone who really sometimes there's no substitute in looking somebody in the eye and then them persuading you that says, listen, I'm the guy for you, I'm the girl for you. We can get this stuff done. We can be a very good team. Finally, I also look for this magic X factor, this sense of can-do-ness, sense of perpetual optimism. I like a little bit of cynicism in my team members, in my colleagues as well. A lot of critical thinking, but generally, I think the biggest force that a person can bring is optimism. When you have optimism, and when you have you couple that with a lot of courage, you can do a lot of big things in your life. Of course, the basic skills we always look for. I would like people to come with some sense of functional knowledge as well in what they do. If you're coming to apply for a CXO Apprentice for the Chief Financial Officer, let's hope you come with a little bit of financial backing and some good grounding in what you've studied in university. Same if you come for a technical role with the CTO, for example. But then we also look for some of the new stuff, the ability to be analytical, the ability to think around automation, the ability to sort of work in a matrix organization where you have one functional leader, but then you are able to also work in various different projects and report to various different project leaders in that. So these are the sort of organizational skills and this organizational savviness that I certainly look for, and I would dare say many business leaders also look for in someone. Good business brain, but really bringing a lot of these X factors in to be able to succeed in a role like this.
I see, I see. Thank you for that. So, dear attendees, did you all write that down? So, I think that's very important. I think anywhere you go, you need all of that by the least. Okay. So, Jonathan, I see that Mr. Joe here is very, he requires a lot from you. So, it begs the question, right? So, when you're always around with the C-suite officers, such as Mr. Joe himself, isn't that a little daunting? Isn't that a little scary for you?
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for the question. Actually, in real life, it's not that scary. Of course, you need to have some standards, right? But it's not that scary because of Digi's culture. And I think every Digizen, especially the CXOs, now that I've actually worked with them, truly cares about the people that report to them, and truly cares about the company and people well-being as a whole. And what I found surprising about Digi's culture is how open it actually is. Now, openness is a bit hard to describe over a screen here, but I'll try my best to actually illustrate it. We have an open seating arrangement at Digi, and it's so open that the CXOs actually sit at the same table where everybody else sits. This means that you can literally have a CXO sitting right in front of you or right next to you, and you can just walk over or say hi or ask any questions that you want. Of course, you have to respect sometimes that they might be busy, but most of the time they're quite approachable. Another way to illustrate this is to say that some working offices in Malaysia can be quite formal in nature. You always have to be in suits. Sometimes you might even have to wear a tie. And in Digi, it's actually smart casual every day. Some people even wear t-shirts, although I don't recommend wearing t-shirts. But yeah, it's quite open. You can ask people anything, anytime, and there will always be people who are there to teach you something or to help you at something. So you might be given projects that you might not necessarily know how to do at first, but if you are a go-getter, you ask questions, you find out how to do something. It might take you some time, but you will get there. And I think that's a great benefit that Digi has.
I see.
Maybe can I add on, Nick, to some of Jonathan's points? John, you made some good
ahead.
points. I don't know whether sitting right across me is a good thing or not so good thing, but I leave that to you. You seem to be happy, so that should be quite good. But really, we talk about Digi culture. Culture is a very unique thing. It's something that you build over many years. It's hard to replicate culture. You can hire people, you can put a lot of money to build identical offices or workplaces. But culture is a mix of so many different factors. Yes, the workplace, the physical workplace is one thing, but the sort of philosophy that we have as an organization, the type of dialogues you have with people across the organization, the type of the interactions you have from the leaders all the way down to the grassroots of the organization, the things you do recurrently, the way of working, the way of thinking, the common sort of thread that holds us all together, all that makes up culture. It's a very hard thing for organizations to copy. It needs to be unique. It needs to be invested in year by year. Of course, when we talk about DG Workplace, that open workspace and very casual type of environment, there's also some method in that. And a long time ago, when we sort of founded this new way of working, we always thought, listen, it's always going to be best when we put people in positions of comfort, and then you leave them in an environment where they're supported, but they're also challenged, and they're able to interact with each other, and that we felt would be able to bring the best out of people. And I think the track record speaks to itself. Digi was one of the earliest pioneers in this area, but now you see it's not really a unique thing because many companies have taken into it. It's a way of the world today, to be casual in your appearance at least, but professional. To be sort of open in a workspace. Of course, now with COVID coming in, we might really need to rethink that as well, the restrictions around that. But the philosophy remains the same, even though the expression of it may be fluid from time to time.
Thank you for that sharing. So I think one of the things that have been shared from before to these attendees is that one of the important things for them to consider is the company culture. So I think Digi's company culture is definitely a great culture for those who are here in attendees there. And I think, yeah, if you want the Digi culture, just like they mentioned, go for Digi. All right, it is unique. I agree, it is very unique. So I think so then we have another question from Jonathan here. So after you graduate, right? So how much of what you learned in the university did you actually apply in your role in DG?
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for the question. Yeah, this is actually an interesting question. So I think university itself, the process of going to a university actually equips you with a lot of soft skills. And this is where your co-curricular activities shine a lot more. And it makes the activities that you do outside of your academic work very, very powerful. Why I say this is that your co-curriculars are the ones that will arm you with a lot of the soft skills, such as critical thinking, such as relating to people, putting together events, working with people who are not just older than you, but sometimes a lot younger than you. When you are put into projects, sometimes you might have to meet people who are, I don't know, 2 or 3 years younger than you, but you're still reporting to them anyway. And these are skills that are very valuable, especially when I'm looking at Digi, because what has happened for me is that I've been moved from one project to another. So I think linking it back to culture is that one of Digi's values is to always explore, and I've explored to the fullest extent so far, and that is a great thing for me. So in terms of my academics, I studied a broad degree, which means that you had to read very, very broadly. You had to read many different things and many different type of things. But I think something that's important that I carried over to Digi is that it teaches you to be open-minded. It teaches you to take things as they come, and you really have an agile mindset when you approach things. You know, things can change from time to time, but the key thing is to have a direction, and then you readjust and reevaluate. So I think those are the things that are really, really helpful. Having the soft skills, relating to people, learning really, really fast on the ground. Those are things that will carry you forward.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I totally agree. So it's very important of the things that we do outside of academy. That's really the things that really shape us. So I think in the perspective of a mentor, right, Joe, how about you? What do you think? Do you think academic background is relevant to the CXO Apprentice program?
Yes, I will never diminish the value of good education. And good education doesn't mean just going to a good school. It's about making sure that you reach the full potential of the time that you are in whatever institution that you're in. That you, of course, get the right academic insights and benefits from your program, but also making a good use of your student life. And also, if you look at the track record of the people that we've hired, it's people that have had full exploration of their potential during their student life, both in academics, but also in non-academic pursuits. Jonathan, for example, has been quite prominent in ASEAN, Southeast Asian young leaders. My previous apprentice was a social organizer in the UK, a young Malaysian student doing well in UK in organizing, starting and leading social programs. So people who have a good interest in the community around them, as much as they do in investing in themselves. But really, it's whether it's academics while you're in school, or whether it's learning outside. I think the key thing to growth and development is how much you yourself put into your own development. It's about the investments you make in yourself. When I like people to have a curious mind, to be always thirsty for knowledge, curious enough to learn, nimble enough to just go around the organization, find new things out, make lots of mistakes. Because if you're making mistakes, then you're actually doing something. The people I'm always quite wary of are the guys who don't make too much mistakes, because it either means that they're very perfect, and nobody's perfect. And more likely it is that they're not pushing the boundaries, they're not taking themselves outside their comfort zones. And that, I think, when we do that, we do a disservice to ourselves, because we don't stretch ourselves enough. So I like people who have good academic grounding, but that's not the be-all and end-all of everything. I like people who also have done fascinating things during their student life and their life outside of university and college or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. So, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it really requires a person to really grow, to really expand themselves, really invest themselves a lot to be in this program. So for this program, right? So I know that Jonathan, he is required to actually go the extra mile constantly. Have uh have you, Jonathan, ever had moments where you feel so overwhelmed with challenges, and how would you handle that? That's crazy sometimes, right?
I think that is all the time. I think if you were to ask the previous and batches of apprentices, or even the current one, this program is a bit like running a race, right? However, you are not necessarily running it on a straight line. So I like to do a lot of long distance running. And if you go to a stadium and you got to just do the track, right? Usually you follow that straight pathway and you complete the number of laps, and you try to finish it within a certain time frame, and you cover a certain amount of distance. So the time frame stays the same. It's a 1 year program. You have to finish things within 1 year, but that pathway is not set in this program. So what does this mean? This means that you are running a lot, but you are also given different kinds of projects as they come along, depending on the situation, depending on your growth that you want to achieve, when you discuss together with your respective CXO. And this can often be overwhelming to some people, but I think this is where the mentorship comes in, where when you speak to your respective mentors, you can ask things like, which should you prioritize first, and which can you do later, which is more important, where should you spend your time and put your energy and efforts into. And this really will help you plan a lot better, so that you don't just end up running, but you end up running with a direction, and that direction is the one that will sort of get you from point A to point B.
I see, I see. So would you recommend to our dear audience here to take up running also?
Why not, right? But it doesn't work for everyone, and with social distancing in place, it might be a bit harder. So some people have told me that yoga works a lot better for them. So maybe they can try that as well.
All right, you hear that, guys? Running or yoga, take one, all right? Joe, how do you decide the kind of projects for your apprentice to get involved in?
Okay, so I run the entire corporate affairs function in Digi, and I have several domains or departments under my responsibility. These are legal, these are privacy and governance, which is a very new area that most organizations are building right now. Data protection and awareness and the right frameworks within their organizations. The third is corporate communications, which is a little bit more easier to understand. Business sustainability, it's about how we sort of run the business and govern it according to the standards that we set for ourselves, but also how we engage with society and our key stakeholders. Government relations and regulatory. So regulatory is also, because telecoms is such a highly regulated sector, it's about keeping compliant with the regulations and the expectations of our government stakeholders. but also coming together with the industry to deliver value to the whole organization, to the whole industry. So in Jonathan's tenure here with us as well, I've looked for the projects which are current and which are busy and which are also a little bit scary, because that's when you can throw people into the pool and they will learn how to swim. So his first project with us was when I put him into the 5G project in last August. And that's when we first sort of like fresh out of launching the 5G, the demonstration projects. I think there is no commercial availability of 5G yet in Malaysia, but the whole industry has started testing the demonstration projects around 5G to explore various verticals, business cases, and so on. We ran a virtual lab out. We ran a 5G lab out of Sabajaya. Jonathan was in charge of that. He was in charge of looking at the applications of businesses who wanted to build applications and test applications, coordinating them in, bringing them in, evaluating them, making recommendations to management, and helping plan for the long-term rollout of 5G. He's also been since working on a number of business sustainability programs. He was on the team that built a crowdfunding platform in a matter of weeks that allowed our customers to donate a very healthy sum of money towards raising money for the frontliners in COVID-19. He's also worked on the integrated reporting project in Digi as well, where as a public listed company, we put together a report, an annual report on our entire business and our sustainability focus for the previous year. So it's about what's current, it's about what's demanding, and it's about what is also scary, because then I can test Jonathan, I can observe him. But it's not just me. Jonathan has the ability to now also engage with other leaders within my organization, with people who report to me, who are very seasoned executives as well in their own domain areas. So he's got now the ability to engage directly with them in a project setting. So that's his job. It is his job, and then deliver best towards the expectations that we have there.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So we have about 10 minutes before we wrap up. So I think we'll just take this time to get the questions from the floor. So we have one question here. It's directed to Jonathan. So could you share tips and tricks on how you manage to pass through all of the stages of the assessments?
Well, I think number one, you have to be a go-getter, because the test can be quite challenging, and they sort of gives you like a bit of a training ground before you actually enter the program itself. So if you're not a go-getter, it's going to be a bit difficult for you. Go-getter means that you have to have one, an open mind, but two, you have to be willing to take on new things and try out new things. The other thing that helped me during the application process is to actually read up about the telco industry. This is something that I initially struggled with because I didn't know much about the telco industry. I knew about phones, I knew about phone plans, but I didn't know how the business actually runs. So this is something, if you can read up about it, that will be really good. And then one more thing that will help you during the application process is to meet people that you already know that work at Digi. Either if you don't already know them, maybe you can try reaching out to LinkedIn, and then you can sort of ask them like, what is the culture like, what are their expectations for you, or if they have gone through the application process before, what are some of the things that they face. These are things that will really help you. HR will also help you at times as well.
I see. So thank you. Yeah. So you all hear that, guys. Homeworks are important. Make sure you do your homework before you start doing anything else. All right, guys. So the next question I have here from Mr. Ozir Khan. What would you like to see someone in this position achieve in 3 months after being accepted in the program? So I think this one can be answered by either Joe or Jonathan.
Yeah, maybe I have a go at that. In 3 months, I think a person should feel that they've been working in Digi for 3 years already. I expect people to be busy. I expect people to be neck deep in projects. Maybe Jonathan, you will probably agree to that. But 3 months after you joined, it must have felt like 3 years. But I also expect that people would would generally commit themselves, be part of the team, be collaborative, be open to feedback, be open to learning from their mistakes, quickly come back and and make the right remedies, be detailed as well. I expect that in 3 months they kind of understand what is expected of them of the job. Sometimes it takes us a long time. Many business executives only discover that over a span of 2-3 years sometimes. Now I finally figure out what my job is really about. But the younger you are and when you're sort of like just starting out in an organization, it's easier to figure out. And so I'd like people to figure that out pretty quickly. I'd like them to also be able to talk about the business with a little bit of passion. I'd like them to be able to deliver, to stand up, to take questions, to be able to think on their feet as well. It sounds like a lot, but it is a demanding organization. We love having a lot of fun. And I hope Jonathan will say that we do have a lot of fun as well. But we generally like working. We like challenging and pushing ourselves to the limit. And I expect that people who make the cut have that same appetite.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, it sounds.
If I can add to it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
sure. Go ahead.
think Joachim was absolutely true, right? In the first 3 months, it really did feel like 3 years. In fact, one of the colleagues actually mentioned that to me. Oh, you've been here for 3 months. It felt like you've been here for years. So that is true. And yeah, Digi is a fun place to work. You'll find that the people are the fun kind of people. I know that some places you will meet a lot of serious people, and probably it's because of the type of industry that they are in. But Digi being in the business of, so our mission is actually quite interesting. It says that we want to connect people to things that matter the most to them. And I think that, and I truly believe in the day-to-day work that we do, we actually help that, and even more so during this COVID-19 period. And I think that is one of the main motivation that will keep you going as you work at
I
Digi.
see. Yeah, I guess I would assume if it feels like 3 years, and Joe and Jonathan, both of you guys might feel like you guys know each other for 3 years also, right?
Yeah, I kind of missed out seeing him in the office and giving him a hard time on a day-to-day basis. But I like Jonathan because he brings the qualities that I look for as well. He brings a lot of optimism. He brings a sense of can-do-ness. He asks a lot of questions, and I think this is true of the ones who succeed. They ask a lot of questions. No question is a stupid one. The only stupid question is the one that's not asked. He makes mistakes all the time, and that's okay because then he learns from it pretty quickly, and it shows that he's actually getting his hands dirty. He's getting involved in the actual operations itself. So I like people like that. I like people who are also optimists. I give him a job, he kind of accepts it, figures out how to do it, does it with a smile, finds a little bit of joy in his work, and that's very important.
Yeah, I think Jonathan, you have a lot of things that you can share here. I think a lot of these attendees who might need to know all your tips and tricks on how to be as good as you are right now. So I think we have another question from the floor here. How does the experience of being a CXO apprentice differs from being a fresh grad that works in the corp affairs? So I think maybe I'll pass this to Joe, and then I'll pass it to Jonathan.
So, could you just repeat that question, Nick, once more?
Yeah, sure.
I just want to get it right.
The question is, how does the experience of being a CXO apprentice differs from being a fresh graduate that works in corp affairs?
Yeah, sure. Whether it's in corporate affairs or rest of Digi, we do hire many fresh graduates as well. Either it's a matter of the normal hiring process. Sometimes we meet candidates in the CXO apprentice process itself, and then while they're being appraised by some of our managers who are out there doing a scouting job looking for the CXO apprentice candidate, some will come back and say, "Hey, listen, I met so and so. This guy or this girl is quite phenomenal. I don't think he needs CXO apprentice. I've got a job now. I've got an opening. I'd like to hire him or her for directly." That's absolutely possible as well. But we look for a special something in CXO apprentice. Remember, the whole intention of this was to groom future leaders for Digi, future leaders for the Malaysian corporate scene and future leaders for Malaysia in general. So we look for those people who invest in not just themselves, but also invest their own time and their own efforts in the community around them, and who have the ability to do much more than just what work requires of them to do. So I like people who have passion for society. I like people who have passion for building networks, not telecoms networks, but networks and connections with individuals from around the world. I like people who have a sense of integrity about what their own lives are about and how much more they should give to causes beyond themselves. And again, I like people with a sense of can-do-ness. Those are things that they will set candidates for CXO Apprentice program apart from other candidates which are also good enough to join Digi and take regular jobs straight on. But also, we look for people who we feel we can mentor and grow. And this is an important insight, and this is something that us as business leaders keep telling ourselves. Throughout the time when we were growing in our careers as well, we've had many mentors or guides or benefactors who sort of helped us in that process. We need to now give back and mentor and train people, whether or not they're from a CXO Apprentice program. What the program does is allow us to do that in a much more conscious and a structured way.
I see, I see. So what about you, Jonathan? I know you had some experience working in other corporate. So what's your perspective?
I think the key takeaway of this program is twofold. Number one is that it's open and broad nature. The fact that you can sort of tailor your career in that 1 year, and you can have a conversation with your CXO on that. That's really beneficial. Like I to recall earlier, like it's good that if you're not really certain of what you want to do yet and you want to discover your strengths, this program is perfect for you because you actually get to sample different things. And I've been really grateful to Joachim for giving me very prominent projects. Sometimes a bit scary projects, but they are great, right? Because you really do get to learn a lot. And I'll just give you an example. For the 5G project, it really felt like I was taking an engineering degree while working at the same time. Because every day after work, I had to go back and study, like, what is this about? What's this technology about? How can I better explain it to people? Things like that. So it gives you that breadth that you will need. So if you want to sample things, this is the perfect program for you. And number two, a lot of us, at least for me, need mentors in our life. We need someone to talk to, someone that has been there before, someone that you can sort of look up to, as well as to point you in the right direction. They won't be there with you all the time, but you would need someone that you can sort of point, that this direction. Maybe you should look into this instead, or to help you think through things. And I think this is where the program excels as well, because it sort of had that sort of professional but still personal relationship with your CXO mentor, and that is what will help you in the long run.
I see, I see. Well, thank you so much. So right now we're already 12:40, so we have to wrap up. So before we wrap up, we do have one more question, which is just to, make summarize of everything here. So for Joe and Jonathan, maybe I'll start with Joe. What advice would you give to the potential applications of the program?
Well, to come forward with the program, my advice to you is just get started. Go online, go to digi.com.my. You'll find your way to the apprentice application site, or if you look at the chat right now, if you look at digi.my/CXO Apprentice, there are many guides for you to get involved. But also, I would say stay curious, guys. Keep investing in yourself. If it's not this program, there are many out there. Keep your eyes open, go for it, and keep investing in yourself. And then I do this in many of the chats that I go for on whatever topics. I'm a bit of a bookworm. I like to read a lot. I've got lots of physical books. My house is just full of it. The last time I was on this chat, I talked about this book called Factfulness by Hans Rosling. Very factful way of looking at the world. Today, I want to talk about another book that I'm reading, and it's called Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. It's about understanding people and understanding how they think. And I think this sort of empathy There are many examples here about how some very famous people made some very bad mistakes throughout history because they did not understand the other person that they were talking to and their motives. But really, I think it's a good insight into how we ourselves think and the biases we have when we meet other people, and how to dismantle that bias, or at least be very conscious of it, have it in front of our mind, so that we can put that aside whenever we meet people and talk to them directly, and hopefully make better judgments on people and be much more inclusive and empathetic as humans. So I love sharing. I love talking about books. Read up more yourself, but enjoy yourself in this process, and I wish you the best of luck, and I hope I'll see some of you at the final stages of the applications process. Thank you.
All right. So Jonathan, before we wrap up, what about you? What would be your advice to those who want to apply to the program?
As Joachim mentioned, get started, apply, invest in yourself. Those are really good things. To add on to books though, there are fantastic YouTube videos on the program at Digi's YouTube channel. Do check them out. I think one of them was sort of like when I first wanted to learn more about this program, I actually watched it. It looked a bit like have you watched Apprentice before? If you watched it, that video is sort of reminiscent to it. It's like a live action show that shows what the apprentice does on a day-to-day basis. I think those are really helpful. I'm sometimes a visual person, so watching videos actually help.
All right. So for those who are watching that YouTube video, also give the video a thumbs up, okay? So before we end, so there's one more thing I wanted to tell to everybody here is that for those who want to apply, I'm putting up here, you see on my screen, there's this QR code, okay? So if you want to apply, wait no more, just apply today, right? The deadline is coming pretty soon. Take up your phones, scan this QR code to go to the link to apply. If you are using your phone right now, I cannot scan this QR code. Just go to the platform, go to Digi's company profile. The link will be there on the right-hand side, or you can also go to the job post in the company profile. The link is in there, okay? You must use this link to apply. All right, so I think before we end, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joe, for all of your insight sharing here. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for all the perspective you're giving to all these attendees. And to all the attendees, thank you so much for taking up your noon today to get all this knowledge. I just want to say that this is not just applicable to just the DG career, but it's also applicable to your own career wherever you are, okay? So take note and just remember. So that's all the time that we have right now. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for our next webinar that's going to happen at 2 p.m. Just go on to the platform. The link is there, RSVP, and don't forget to join. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Jonathan,
All the
back to work.
best. Okay, boss.
Back to work. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.